Hello, everybody, and welcome to 30 Minute Thrive, your go-to podcast for anything and everything HR, powered by MRA, the Management Association. Looking to stay on top of the ever-changing world of HR? MRA has got you covered. We'll be the first to tell you what's hot and what's not. I'm your host, Sophie Bowler, and we are so glad you're here. Now it's time to thrive. Hello, and welcome to episode number 36 of 30 Minute Thrive. We're glad you're here, and I'm happy to introduce to you our guest for today, and that's Cheryl Lucas-DeBerry. Cheryl is one of our learning and development instructors here at MRA and comes with a really strong background with over 30 years of professional experience. And currently, Cheryl, you are in the process of getting your degree and will be getting licensed in counseling, which is great.
Yes.
So congrats on that.
Thank you.
But May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so we're really kicking off the month with a mental health in the workplace episode. So according to Mental Health America, 21% of adults are experiencing a mental illness, and that's equivalent to over 50 million Americans, which means a lot of these individuals are bringing that into the workplace too. So what are some of the most common mental health conditions that employees may be dealing with? And how can we ensure that they feel supported?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. Mental health is really becoming very prevalent and much more known and talked about in the workplace. But according to the research, the main ones that people are dealing with are depression, anxiety, and PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And that really comes from individuals having to deal with violence in the workplace.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we recently talked to Christy Haase on employee engagement. So how can you identify whether an employee is disengaged or if it's mental health related?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think really it's kind of paying attention to paying attention to their behavior and really looking at the kind of the baseline. Is this behavior something totally different than how they have been in the past, or is it about the same? So when you look at that as a baseline, then you can start to determine if there's something else that may be going on with this individual, because it's not the typical type of behavior that they would exhibit.
Yeah, I feel like as a manager, that would be kind of difficult to determine. Like, if your employee isn't as active in the workplace or if they are not as engaged, like how you can tell if it's a personal thing or a mental health thing or they're just disengaged. But kind of going off of that, how can employees and managers create that culture of support and empathy when it comes to these mental health conversations?
It really is about having those conversations, kind of paying attention, asking questions. Is there something going on? How are you doing today? That's a good question. How are you doing today? And then kind of basing your response on their response. So how do you deal with that? And then just being open and saying, I'm here if you want to share something, if you want to talk to someone, that's fine too. But just letting them know that I'm here for you.
Exactly.
And showing that empathy, because most of the times people just need to know that someone cares.
Yeah, I like how you said that. And how are you doing today? I like that question.
Yeah.
So how does work-life balance also play a role in this?
Stress and burnout are some things that cause employees to have, depression and anxiety. So really, organizations just paying attention to what do we need to do to create some activities, even for folks working remotely. What are some things that we can do to incorporate into the company culture of ensuring that people understand that it's okay to take your vacation time. You do need to get up and do stretch breaks. You do need to take time for yourself, even if you're working out of your home at some point, making a determination that I am stopping at this time and separating yourself from that, because it's quite easy if your office is down the hall, it's quite easy to continue to work. But at some point, you end up burning out, and then that creates less productivity and all kinds of things. And then that ultimately affects the individual's home life, family life, personal lives, all those things, how they interact with their manager, how they interact with their coworkers, etc.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. I know some of my friends actually have an alarm set at like lunchtime where it's like, I'm taking my 20-minute walk right now. Don't take a lap or something like that,
Absolutely.
Which is great.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that mental health is being talked about a little bit more nowadays and more of an open topic. But why do you think mental health has been stigmatized in the workplace? And what do you think we can do to kind of change that?
I think it's been stigmatized for so long just because of lack of understanding. It was oftentimes thought of, hiding Uncle Joe in a closet, or that's just, Aunt Agnes, and that's just how she is. But now it's becoming much more talked about in the open. It's not the hush-hush as it used to be. And so just having people understand that mental health is a real thing, and organizations understanding that mental health is a real thing, and what can we do to kind of incorporate that into the organizational culture, not just let it be a flavor of the day, if you will. One of the ways that organizations can address the stigma around mental illness is really to have those open conversations. According to one HR article I was reading, it said open conversations about mental health really help break that taboo that often kind of characterizes that particular topic. So a culture, instead of promoting a culture that is around the hush-hush, it really is just kind of bringing it out in the open, that employees feel comfortable talking about it. Senior leadership feels comfortable in talking about it, and just having people feel like it's okay. And using that term mental health issues is also important. And then the mental health can then be spawned into really focusing on their emotional well-being. So organizations can help employees move into kind of a safe space by having those open discussions around the subject of mental health. You want to encourage employees and managers really to be open about using the term mental health, and it can be incorporated into the company's newsletters, to their social media sites, and then just meeting agendas that they can use within the organization. Just incorporating really into the day-to-day conversations will really help further reassure employees that the company is acknowledging the importance of mental health in the workplace.
Yeah, that's great.
So I think mental health is becoming less stigmatized now because of people's attitudes toward it. And also, they have seen more famous people that have come out to talk about their own mental health illness, or just talking about mental health in particular. So because it is kind of come from under the covers, if you will, and more famous people are talking about it, then it is becoming less taboo in the workplace, and organizations are feeling more comfortable in having their employees talk about it as well and incorporate it into their entire organizational culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And how could we promote mental health awareness and education in the workplace?
It's interesting. Something that I read, it said promote emotional well-being versus physical well-being. And so many organizations will have, opportunities for employees to participate in some kind of physical well-being, which, challenges, water challenges, walking challenges, things like that, but also incorporating some emotional well-being. What does that mean? It's just being able to take a step back from work to do something fun. It might be doing some fun activities with the coworkers, or even working remotely, creating those scavenger hunts, or just creating some fun in the workplace. So that helps with that emotional well-being and reducing stress. And when stress is reduced, then mental health is not as prevalent.
No, I love that. I think that's a great idea to promote both physical and emotional.
Yes.
So what role can employee resource groups or other affinity groups play in creating a more supportive environment as well?
Yeah. With employee resource groups, they are usually a smaller group, and so people may feel more comfortable in sharing with each other, but just creating that space where people will feel comfortable in sharing. And peer listening groups can be incorporated into the employee resource groups. Just that listening, that I'm here for you. Again, most of the times people just want to know that somebody hears them and they can feel comfortable in sharing in a smaller network of friends. The employee resource groups are usually individuals that share the same kind of affinity towards a particular topic. And so creating those peer listening groups related to mental health, because research shows that vast majority of people have been impacted by mental health, whether it was personally or through a family member or friend.
Oh, absolutely. I believe it. I think a lot of people might not talk about mental health too because they're embarrassed or they feel like they're alone. So those groups definitely are very helpful, like you said. But as we kind of close out here, you're a trainer, you're a learning and development instructor, so I have to ask what resources or trainings you would recommend or that are available to employees who may be struggling with their mental health, and how can we kind of make sure that they're aware of these resources?
Yeah, I think some trainings would just utilizing your employee assistance program, creating some stress reduction types of activities within the workplace. Also, just having senior leadership talk about the mental health and how important that is. And then that gets incorporated into the overall culture, because individuals want to feel like they can bring their whole selves to the workplace. And if they can't, then they tend to leave. If they don't feel like the organization culture supports mental health and mental well-being or emotional well-being, then they will find other opportunities. So a way to have organizations do that is to offer some training around mental health, mental well-being, and just ways that people can find a way to unplug, if you will.
Definitely.
What are some things that we can do as an individual? What are some things we can do as a group? And that organizations will provide for the employee at no cost to them or minimal cost to them.
Well, that's a great way to end the episode. Some great advice to end with. So thank you for being on 30 Minute Thrive today and sharing all of that advice and knowledge and expertise on mental health in the workplace. It's definitely a topic that's important and something that it's never going to go away. So.
No, it's not. And Mental Health Month is a good kickoff for that, but it should be incorporated throughout the entire organizational culture, so it doesn't come across as just being another flavor of the day, that it is part of the overall culture of the organization.
Absolutely. Well, to our listeners, if you liked our chat and topic today, I'd encourage you to share this episode and leave a good review, leave a comment, and consider joining MRA if you aren't a member already. We do have all the resources below in the show notes, including Cheryl's bio and LinkedIn if you'd like to get in contact with her. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in today. And thank you again, Cheryl.
Thank you.
And we will see you next week. And that wraps up our content for this episode. Be sure to reference the show notes where you can sign up to connect for more podcast updates. Check out other MRA episodes on your favorite podcast platform. And as always, make sure to follow MRA's 30 Minute Thrive so you don't miss out. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next Wednesday to carry on the HR conversation.